we saw The Monkey.
We did see The Monkey.
In the movie theater.
It was more people there than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, there was a lot of people in the theater. Of course, it was opening weekend. It was a fun... I didn't think it was supposed to be so humorous because the trailer I saw alluded to more of a horror. I didn't say it was horror at all. It was supposed to be comedy horror. There was nothing scary about that movie.
It was like a dark comedy.
Yeah, it was like a Shaun of the Dead type of movie. It's a lot of fun if you don't think too hard about it. Intensely over-the-top kills. Like every time somebody died, they were vaporized.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated.
Yeah.
So like somebody got shot with like a shotgun, vaporized. Somebody jumped in an electric pool, vaporized. Not like just blowing up. Like, that wouldn't happen, but I like that it did. It was fun. The actors did a good job. Good cast.
I hated the kid.
Which kid? Oh yeah, you know what? I don't like that kid. Was in something else, and I just don't like his face.
He looks weird. I don't know.
He almost reminds me of the annoying fat kid that was supposed to be an annoying fat kid in the Benchwarmers back in the day. You know, the one that got bullied?
Yeah.
He's supposed to be John Lovett's son. Good casting for that. He was supposed to be annoying. Like, he might not have been like that in real life. And, you know, he was just a chubby kid. But this kid wasn't even fat, but he still had the face of a fat kid, kind of. I don't know. Like a angular fat guy that's not fat anymore. I don't know. Something about it. Piggish? Maybe not the right word. I didn't care for the kid, but, you know. That one downfall of the movie, they never killed the characters I really wanted to get killed. Like, there was a significant amount of characters that actually had a lead up to them should be getting killed. Like, there's bullies at the beginning. Nothing happens to the bullies.
No.
Elijah Wood is a big fucking douchebag in the movie.
For like 5 minutes?
Yeah, he's only in it for 5 minutes. You're like, oh, well, they're going to kill that guy. No. Just never had him again. So maybe they didn't have it in the budget to kill Elijah Woods. But other than that, I liked the movie. I gave it a solid 6 out of 10.
Yeah, that seems about right. 5 or 6.
We also went and read the short story, The Monkey by Stephen King, which it actually plays as a straight horror. And I give that, I don't know, fucking 5 out of 10, 4 out of 10. It wasn't great. It was okay.
Right.
For the premise.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's played more for actual horror in the story, but it was aged. It's, 1980?
Right. For the movie, I like the guy that they got to play Hal, the main character. That guy, like, I don't know, like...
That guy's got a voice on him.
Right, I was just thinking, like, he needs to be doing audiobooks.
I'm sure he does, or voiceover work. He has to, because that guy's voice, I was just, like, mesmerized.
Yeah.
I was like, why do you sound so good, dude?
Because in the story, they do like flashbacks a lot of, you know, of whenever Hal and his brother were kids and now. But they did a lot of they just did like that stuff. They did
this more of a sped
linear, like you know, from beginning to end kind of thing.
It was more of a sped up version of It, where It, like the kids part was a whole movie, and then, you know, the grown up was the second part, you know, second movie. This was just like the first half of the movie was when they were kids, and then second half was adults.
Yeah, but I liked him like in that first half narrating everything. It's like I like that more than just the actual like.
He should definitely do narrations on like actual horror movies. Like if they were doing a horror movie and they needed a voiceover to like, you know, something like, it'd be cool. Anyway, that was our shit review. Solid 6 out of 10. I guess Whiskey Shots a 2.5, 3 out of 5. I don't know. Story, 1, 2. We have a controversial episode. I don't know if it's controversial. It might be for you today. And then that's it. And hopefully it's a fast one because I got lots of stuff to do and a minimal amount of time to do it. No, I'm not doing that.
It doesn't take you that long to do.
Nah, that's actually probably the fastest part of my day. You are listening to the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Caleb James. I got some energy today. I've been sleepy all week, like beyond, like just passing out when I get home. Thought I had a blood disorder. That just seemed like a thing that would happen to me in the winter. But no, I'm all right now. I think it was just I needed to sleep in a little, that's why I told you to come over at 11. I was like, I need to at least sleep into 8:30 because I've been getting up at fucking 5, and it's, I don't know, things haven't been going well. I'm your host, Caleb James. If I didn't mention that already, with me today is Spencer, the Cypress Sea Serpent Slayer Church.
Ooh, yeah, I like that one.
It's alliteration, but it's not because Cypress starts with a C and the rest starts with S's, but it still works as alliteration because it's all sounds.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
like
I wonder.
Like a snake.
I wonder, since Cyprus is such an old nation, if it's actually Cyprus. Because like Julius Caesar was actually Kaiser. Just like the Irish, they don't have the C as an S sound. It's always just K.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if it would be Cyprus. Or it's probably just square, hieroglyphic, circle. Like, just weird to fucking pronounce that.
Right.
Because I think that's what Greek mainly is. And I'm assuming it's a Greek nation, or at least was. I don't know much about Cyprus. I think it's an island. Anyway, today's episode is sponsored by... I don't know.
No.
We don't have a sponsor again.
No.
We actually, I did get some kind of big time guest wants to come on, but I don't know if I want them.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like something about like some, what do they call that when you have to do like, oh, I'm in big trouble and now I have to do a tour to clear that up.
Right. The
Get the name of
like
that.
the goodwill tour kind of
Something.
thing.
Yeah, I wanted to say recovery tour. That's not it. When you're trying to rehash your image or whatever. Some Neil Gaiman guy. Speaking of Neil Gaiman, that brings us to our episode. What do you do when you have bought a lot of books from an author you like, and then that author, before you have finished all the books, has turned into, and not turned into, just is found out to be a giant hunk of shit beyond repair, beyond polishing, I guess would be better. You can't polish a turd, can you? I tried.
They did it on Mythbusters, but one time, but they had to turn it into like a ball, it wasn't the actual shit really anymore.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what do you do, Spencer, personally? Because you and I both have quite a few Neil Gaiman books we have not read yet.
Right.
And now, as Neil Gaiman has turned into a monster in the public eye, has been a monster in the private eye for many a year, it seems.
Yes, it seems.
For those who don't know, Neil Gaiman has been he's been accused of allegedly being a woman assaulter, diddler, creep of nefarious means because he's rich and he can do these things. I think we talked about it before, but he had a tub in his yard and he was doing tub stuff and making women do things they don't want to do, supposedly. He has not been convicted of anything, but the thing that really got me was that he is very gross. At least the list of complaints we read were very gross, the things he was making women do. Very demeaning, and this is just if it was consensual, would still be like creepy. I don't want to read this guy's work because he's a fucking degenerate, just from that alone. And he didn't actually deny any of that stuff. He just said, I'm a kinky guy. Yeah. This is what I'm into. That's all. But a consensual, totally consensual. It's like, all right. I mean, you're allowed to be into gross stuff, but didn't sound consensual.
Right, yeah.
Sounded like you were kind of making people. And then also the things he was doing in front of his son. Like his son was in the room for some of those. Like you didn't deny that either. Like your son shouldn't be subject to, that's actual child abuse.
Right.
Your son is watching you get fucking blumpkins or whatever you're doing. So that is, without going too deep into it, very discouraging to say the least when it comes to finishing his bibliography. But the problem is I really like Neil Gaiman's work.
Yeah.
We even talked about doing a Gaiman guys or Gay for Gaiman or whatever it was that you came up with. A segment on the show where we would have special episodes, short stories, comics, and the works of Neil Gaiman, but that's obviously been put on the back burner for indefinitely.
Yeah.
Probably indefinitely. Because even if it comes out that, the lady made it up and all the ladies made it up and Neil Gaiman, who's apparently a sex trafficker as well now, but if all this got cleared up and it turned out to be a gross misunderstanding or they were just trying to get him for money or whatever, I still know too much about Gaiman. So the initial question, Spencer, for you, I'll pose this to you. Do you read his work? Do you continue to read the work you already have bought? And would you buy more work just to finish him out? Like if you didn't have works?
I feel like if you already have the stuff and you're comfortable enough with like reading it, like if you're able to separate that,
maybe not read it in public.
Yeah, but like new stuff, I could definitely see being troublesome. Or just like I'm ordering that online because I'm not gonna walk up to the register at Barnes and Noble with like a stack of Neil Gaiman books and they just look at you like.
When I went to Barnes and Noble, was that last weekend? I noticed, actually just the last few times I've been there, I noticed that I didn't see Neil Gaiman books out.
Okay.
Like I didn't like specifically look for Neil Gaiman, so he might still be in just the general fiction section, but usually they have end caps and they have like very noticeable sections of Neil Gaiman where you can get to his work very easily. Not so much anymore, at least in our local area.
Because and I also think like it's like it's a time issue.
So if he's dead 20 years.
Not even so much that, but I mean, even just like 5 years from now, after like the, quote unquote smoke has settled, after, everything, I feel like that might make it easier to read because it's not in the like of the current, like you're finding things out and like it's all like fresh. Like I think like once some time has passed, because like I mean it's stuff like with the Harry Potter writer Rowling and that Austin Scott Card or whatever, I think he's like a sci-fi writer, and apparently he's like a big just like
piece of shit.
Well, I guess his thing is like the gays, he doesn't like the.
It's a piece of shit.
Yeah, I think like Orson Scott Card or something like that. But like he still like has his fans. I mean, like a lot of people were like, oh fuck you, I'm not reading your stuff anymore. But again, like I think that came out when we were still like in like high school. You know what I mean? So like again, I think like some time help's not the right word, but I think will blunt like the maybe the stigmatism of reading his work.
It creates a fine layer of dust over the image of the person. Maybe I don't know. Like my problem is I don't want to give money to Neil Gaiman or any of these people. Like I don't want to buy I'm not going to buy their works and know it goes to them. So maybe get used library copies or something. That'd be fine. And again, though, I can live without reading Neil Gaiman. So it's just like I spent a good bit of money on the work I already have.
Right.
So because like I do like his work, obviously, but at the same time, if he's a giant piece of shit, I don't need to read him. It's like people are like, well, you still should read Harry Potter. You never read Harry Potter. I didn't want to read it anyway. But even if I was really interested in that, I'm gonna read fucking Harry Potter now. I don't want to give J.K. Rowling money. I don't really give a fuck. It doesn't seem that important to me. I've read many authors who've been canceled over the years. I've very problematic authors in their time, but 50, 60, 70 years later, you don't even think about it. Like Yukio Mishima, he was a problem in Japan in his time. I read all his work, but I'm so far separated from his death that I don't think it really matters. Who's somebody more controversial that we've read that's like maybe Hemingway? It's weird because a lot of these people that are considered controversial or you shouldn't read their work, it's in this stupid modern cancel culture lens. So it's like, oh, Hemingway said a lot of racist things in 1920.
Yeah.
Guy's been dead for 80 years or something. Like, I don't think it really matters so much anymore because people are a product of their time. Now, if you told me Hemingway was a giant raper, that could be different. But at the same time, it's like, well, that was also viewed differently back then, It's like rock stars in the 60s were having sex with underage girls all the time, and for some reason, like, it's all Mick Jagger and fucking, like, it's just all pushed under the rug. Like, these guys are still alive and performing.
Yeah.
And what they did, like Steven Tyler, just all these guys, like, it's fine. It was in the 60s, man. It was in the 70s. It's like, does that make it better, though?
Yeah.
Back then, you were just like, oh, I didn't know you weren't supposed to have sex with children. I thought that was fine. It's like, what? So, I don't know. It's a weird, complicated world we live in, and if we canceled everybody for being a piece of shit, we probably wouldn't read or listen or watch anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, and then it's also like, because like I've heard people talk about like, then do you like take it like do you like the books like off your bookshelf like that, whenever somebody like, I don't know, like I really like the Sandman series or like Neverwhere, and it's like I read those before finding anything out, and I really enjoyed those books, and I think there's something like, I think you can read Neverwhere and like really get something out of it, but then it's just like we've been saying, it's like it's tainted now.
Yeah. Like I said, maybe the banned bookshelf or the forbidden bookshelf. I wouldn't throw them in the closet, especially some of those books. They look nice. I don't know. That's very confusing. I was thinking about David Foster Wallace because I think I mentioned on there, I think he's accused of being like a woman beater or stalker. He's like a piece of shit too in some regard. I didn't look too deeply into it, but I think that stuff came out after his death, which was 15 years ago. Like he hasn't been dead, too long. And it's like, do you continue to support his work because he's dead? And he's not like he was charged with anything because that stuff mainly came out after his death. I think it came out when he was alive, but it wasn't like nobody cared back then. I don't know. It's confusing. I don't think it should reflect on your morals, whether you like say got American Gods today and read it. I don't think that should be something where it's like, oh, you should be canceled for reading a canceled person's. Like, I don't think that's a little extreme.
It's not like you're reading Mein Kampf or something.
Even then, if you read Mein Kampf, like it's more in the intent of why you're reading it. If you're reading it because like, I want to know why Hitler was so fucked up.
Right, yeah.
Like, I want to, maybe I can see some comparisons from this work to certain people that are alive now and what they're doing. Like, there's reasons to read things that are controversial or just straight bad. I mean, you can read, some kind of satanic Bible. Doesn't mean you're going to follow Satan, whatever rules or laws or sacrifices that might be in those old witch books. Like, you might just be interested in, what it is. I think it's worth checking out some Neil Gaiman works that you might have enjoyed in the past, like The Sandman or something like that, and seeing where at one time you thought it was just like a normal part of the story, but now you're like, ooh, that was actually Gaiman. Like this creepy character or the creepy thing this character's doing, that's actually Gaiman. Like I thought it was just good writing of a character that's supposed to be bad or gross or whatever. Nope, that's just Gaiman. That's what he was into. The author's voice has bled through in a way we didn't realize until. Like, how many times do you think that happens in work? Yeah. Or somebody puts their fetishes in there and you don't know. And it's like, this one character is really into butt stuff. That's pretty funny. But then you find out years down the road, oh, no, that's from old, butt raping McGillicuddy.
Well, I mean, look at Tarantino. I mean, there's not a movie where there's like not a close up on some like dirty woman's feet, right? So
yeah, that's.
I mean, that one's a lot less harmless,
Yeah, that's a weird one too. But again, harmless. And if the people in the movie agree to do it, I guess it's fine. I don't know. Because power dynamics are in play, and that's where it gets strange, too. It's like a Tarantino, he has a young 19-year-old actress in a movie, and he's like, hey, I want to have a character lick your toe on close-up. Yeah. And they're like, okay, I'm paying you a lot of money, and this is going to make your career. Yeah. All right. That's been going on in Hollywood for ages. Like, hey, show your tits, and you'll make it in this biz. And that's kind of sucks that happens, and it's almost like consent, but you still don't want to do it. You're coerced into doing it because you know it'll benefit you, but that's like the big problem with power dynamic. So Neil Gaiman, like the allegations, I agree. I don't think it was just like all out sexual assault, as in the person the main one who made these complaints had no say in the matter. If they just left, they could have just left. But it's the power dynamic. Like we talked about, she got in a tub and then Neil Gaiman came out naked and got in, and it just progressed to gross stuff after that. But it's like she could have got out of the tub, but then when you're in the moment and then you're also thinking, well, now I'm not going to have a job. It's very icky, and it's one of those things where unless it happens to you, you don't know how to feel about it.
Well, and also too, like I'm sure in like situations like that, like you're not always thinking
clearly.
Yeah, like you're trying to process everything going on, and you're just like you probably the deer caught in headlights. You're like, what? You know what I mean?
Well, there's also times where something can happen to you, and in the moment, it doesn't seem as bad until you reflect on it. So it's like, say you're at a bar and you're drunk and there's some fucking maybe attractive guy, but he keeps harassing you. Show me your tits. Show me your tits. And finally, just to shut him up, the girl fucking flashes him real quick. And in the moment, it's all shits and giggles and everybody's laughing. But after, she sobers up when she goes home and stuff. And then it's like, oh, I didn't want to fucking do that. Like, how embarrassing. And then it's like, that's technically a form of sexual assault. You coerce somebody into doing something they didn't want to do. And that happens to women way more than men, obviously, but it's just like, that's one of those things that's hard. You can't like necessarily convict somebody of a crime for saying, hey, show me your tits, and you show them your tits, but it doesn't mean they shouldn't get punched in the mouth, or there should be some kind of consequences, but you can't just throw somebody in jail because they nag you into doing something that you didn't want to do, but you still did it. I know, like, especially with the Me Too stuff, there are people who have been locked up for like sexual assault crimes when it gets physical.
Yeah.
But at the same I don't know, it's very hard because you can, like, if girl says no, that should be the end of it.
Yeah.
But if you just keep bothering her and then finally she just relents and says yes, it's technically consent because she said yes, but she doesn't want to do it. I mean, at the very minimum, that makes you a huge hunk of garbage. That just makes you like I would feel like a rapist if I was just like, oh, this girl's gonna have sex with me, but she said no 15 times before she finally said yes. It's like she's just doing it because she just wants to be out of the situation. It's like that's still rape. Like, come on. That's one of those things. Like, how do you convict that? So I think that's more what happened in, like with the Neil Gaiman situation. Is he's basically the guy just like using his power and his wealth and his position to make a girl do something she doesn't want to. She probably just, if she had it her way, if you're like, hey, you're babysitting his kid, do you want to touch his old poopy penis too? No. And I was like, okay, if that's where the line was, that should just be it. Just babysit the kid, don't touch his poopy penis. But he kept nagging you, touch his poopy penis, and you did because you don't want to lose your job. Like that.
It's like that. Oh well, you can leave at any time, knowing that if you leave, like you can say like, oh, you can leave at any time, knowing that if you leave, you're pretty much homeless.
Well, it's like the Harvey Weinstein stuff. It's like technically he probably didn't actually definition rape these women. What he did was make it so, hey, if you don't do it, you're not going to have a career. And that's still a form of rape because it's like, nobody wants to have sex with that fucking mongoloid. Right. But they did it because one, he promised to make their career or whatever. And maybe he did, fulfill that promise. But two, it was the actual consequence of, and this has been going on since Hollywood's been in business. If you don't do it, then it's not just like, okay, that's it. You don't do it and fine, make your career yourself. No, they're going to blackball you and you're not going to have a career and your dreams go down the toilet. And that's the problem is like you're using these consequences as a means to sexually assault women. Yeah. Because they're not going to, again, if you just said, hey, do you want to have sex with Harvey Weinstein? No. Like all these women are going to say no. It's like, what if he gives you a bunch of money? Some will say yes because they want the money or the fame or whatever that comes with it. But still, you would have a lot that would probably the majority would still say no. It's like if you don't have sex with them, you could just continue to work like you are now and do auditions and make movies, and maybe you could build yourself up the normal way. But when you throw in like, well, no, you're not going to be able to do that. It's either have sex with them or just be a waitress. Yeah, they're fuck. Like that's where we're at in society. It's where we've been, and things are finally starting to change. Well, so when you put all that into the picture, it makes it like, how do you support Neil Gaiman in any capacity? Well,
the only other thing you could maybe, and this is just kind of playing like the devil advocate of it, but like also, and like not saying with this case, but like with the Me Too stuff, like a lot of stuff has came out, which is good, but there's also been like some stuff where it's just like, oh, well, those were just accusations, or that weren't like, you know what I mean? Like say like if down the line that after the courts that they Neil Gaiman is like acquitted, or they find out like like whatever reason he's cleared or whatever. Maybe there were some, weird sexual understandings, which,
can happen,
or whatever. But then it's like, he's technically cleared, or like, even like, with like comedian, like, this happened a lot with comedians like Louis C.K. Like it took a while, but now it's like, it's okay to listen to to watch Louis C.K. and stuff now with like the grossness of the stuff. It's like, that kind of reminded me of like Jim Norton, but he's always been out with that since the beginning. Yeah. But like say like, would you be able, because we talked about like like, oh, that's kind of the weird stuff in the book, but like what about like after this, like just like Neil Gaiman, we know Gaiman's like a freak, like but like,
but there's nothing wrong with being a freak. Yeah, like you could be a freak as long as it's consensual.
Yeah, so as long as he does it right, then does that change? Like, cause like what I'm saying, like that kind of goes in like the 5 years from now, like after like like do you think maybe like from like a decade from now, do you think it'll probably be okay to read Neil Gaiman books again? Probably.
I would imagine
there might not be as much new stuff or any till then, but like the work that he already has out.
Well, like one of the problems though is like, say Louis C.K. he was asking women if he could jerk off in front of them from a distance.
Yeah,
watch me jerk off. A lot of them said yes out of curiosity. A lot of them said yes because he's fucking Louis C.K. and he was rich and famous, and they didn't want to say no because maybe they felt some kind of retribution would occur. Again, that's the power dynamic, which he's even admitted that was fucked up.
Yeah.
But the thing was, he wasn't actually touching these. Like if he went over and was like, hey, let me jerk off on your face.
Right.
Well, now that's a whole nother story, and I don't think he would be redeemable, like if he was doing that.
Right, yeah.
So that's a problem. But like going into the psychological aspect of it, if you're Neil Gaiman, I feel, and this is just my opinion, I would imagine Neil Gaiman almost views himself in a godlike capacity now with all the fame and the riches and, the way that people view him. Because, fucking women are coming after, like, every book signing, women are throwing panties at him, basically. Like, he feels like he could do anything. So I could imagine from his point of view is if the woman is not removing herself from the situation or physically removing, like just leaving, he gets in the tub with her and she doesn't leave, he's probably thinking, yeah, she wants me. Right. I'm Neil fucking Gaiman. Yeah. She wants this D. And then that's how he's going about things. So in his mind, everything he did was consensual. Like Harvey Weinstein. He's probably like, these women, I mean, I'm sure at some point you get delusional. He's like, yeah, they want me because I'm a rich, powerful Mongoloid, but I'm fucking like, but I would imagine at some point he had to know he's a hideous ghoul and nobody wants to actually fuck him. But when everyone, like Oprah's celebrating him and everybody's thanking him at the Oscars and he's making all these people's careers, I'm sure he's thinking like, oh no, this woman can suck my dick and they're going to be rich and famous. Like I'm doing them the favor by letting them suck this glorious dick. Yeah. Like I can see these fucking guys, like that's probably what's in their head. So from their viewpoint, they don't think they're wrong. And that's the problem. So Neil Gaiman convincing a woman to do all these gross acts, he doesn't see himself as a sex pest. Because that's what it's called if me and you were like, come on, let me touch it. Come on, let me touch it. Come on, let me touch it. And then finally the woman relents. Like, you're a sex pest. Yeah. There's a term for that. Like, when you're doing that, that's still a form of sexual assault. Because you're making a woman do something she doesn't actually want to do. And I mean, that goes the other way. You can make dudes, children, anybody, like, do something they don't want to do. And it doesn't have to be sexual. It's just any, hey, I want you to fucking cover my shift. Come on, cover my shift. Come on, cover my shift. And then finally you relent even though you don't want to do that at all.
You just do it to shut them up.
Yeah, you just do it to that's basically what it is, to do it to shut them up. And in your mind, it's like, oh, well, I've done this before. That's usually like women's rationale. It's like, well, I've touched it before, like with their husband or whatever. Right. But that still doesn't make it okay. So when you go into like Neil Gaiman territory, though, is like he's being a sex pest. But since they do relent and say yes or just allow it to happen, in his mind, it's not allowing it to happen. They want it.
Which like is so weird because like any kind like interviews or like any like that whole when we watched the Masterclass. At any point of watching that, did you think like, oh, this guy is a fucking creeper?
He's peeing on chicks and stuff, and I that's the facade. That's the British facade. Sure. That's that gentleman ness that he's putting out into the world, where it's like, and the main thing that really pissed me off about Neil Gaiman is what makes him the biggest piece of shit is that he was the champion of women.
Right. Yeah.
He was women are people and they should be treated with all these equal rights, but also they need to be cherished and it's like, no, you're pooping on them and stuff. Like you're a fucking you're a piece of shit, dude. Like that's beyond just being kinky. That's like you're degrading women, like degrading them in the worst ways for your own sexual gratification. And then you're like, let your son see some of this stuff. So what's that kid going to grow up and think? How's he going to think of women? He's going to think that they're subservient. They should be, because he was like into like this master slave shit too.
Wasn't he also having like the kid call like him like also have the kid like call the kid master too or something like that?
And I'm pretty sure he was using the kid as a means to get the women because they were there to babysit. Yeah, they weren't there because they were just hanging out with Neil Gaiman, because again, that would be consensual if he was like, hey, I'm Neil Gaiman, do you want to come over and let me poop on your face and all this stuff? And then like, okay, that's fine. Go ahead and do that. You both are freaks, but do that.
Which is another thing, and you find it like, with the Neil Gaiman types, like these, or like a lot of people that got like Me Too, it's just like, you could have easily done all the stuff you wanted to by just calling like a prostitute that you can pay, that's consensual, it's agreed upon by both parties, but like,
or again, if you're Neil fucking Gaiman, there's so many women that are already they would be like fucking model looking women that would be down to do this without no muss, no fuss. But I don't think that's what gets him off. It's the fact that the women don't want to do it, and he kind of coerces them, because in their mind, like a Neil Gaiman's not going to say, I made them do it, because then that makes him a rapist, and I don't think he could live with himself if he thought he was a rape. I would hope not. Harvey Weinstein, I can see just being, I'm a rapist or whatever. I don't think he would give a shit. But the fact that these women don't want him to do it, and almost like a hunter, you were able to still get what you wanted in the end. Like you're able to bag them, so that he feels like it's an accomplishment, because that's a part of the thrill, I think, is the chase. And that's something that probably develops, like I think it was Jake the Snake Roberts said in an interview a long time ago, when he was on the road and he was having 5 ways and 6 ways and doing all this crazy shit with women. And he's like, after all that, how do I just go back with having normal sex with my wife? Yeah. I think at some point, like when you're a Neil Gaiman, you're doing all these things, and it just keeps escalating to the point where normal sexual relationships with a woman, whether you're with them or not, it like, you know, dating wise, it doesn't do it for you anymore. So like when you have a woman, hey, you want to come over, sit in my tub and let me finger your butthole and all this stuff, and they're just like, yeah, sure, like that wouldn't do it for them. But when they're just like, come over and don't know there's a tub,
yeah,
and he's like, go wash yourself, go take a bath
out in my yard,
in my yard, come on, it's nice out there. It's like, okay. And then they do it. And then all of a sudden, naked, gross 60-year-old Neil Gaiman comes in. And it's like, oh, man, what's happening? And then from the articles I read, it sounded like he had a very well put in place system. Like he would just immediately start talking like everything was normal, that this was normal. This is just another day in Neil Gaiman's life. And you're in Neil Gaiman's life now. So let's make it your normal. And they just like, he has a way of making, you know, the gentlemanly talk and all this stuff. And they just don't realize what's happening until he's like, let me slip this finger in. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, so the weather today while he's doing it.
Oil check.
Yeah, he's got he's knuckle deep in there. And then he's still talking about the weather and shit. And it's just like, what is happening? So I think it's like a air of confusion that works for him too. But all this to say, I don't know how I feel about I still want to read the books I have. But I would definitely have to go into it like, this was just a book. This doesn't have an author. This was just written magically in the air.
This is AI.
This is AI. Like, I don't know how I can.
Again, like I said, at least with us, and, you know, I'm sure a lot of people who listen to this, you know, podcast probably have a pretty big to-read pile.
Yeah.
So you can just kind of stick those, like I said.
I don't have to read them now.
At the bottom of the pile and give it, like, some years and, you know. Maybe then, like, the distance and time might, like, ease that, you know, blunt that edge a little bit.
Yeah. The thing is, like, we're talking about Neil Gaiman as an author that we really liked his work, and at a time thought he was, like, a good person. Like, that's how he presented himself. So, it's great when you read the work of somebody you think's a good person.
Yeah.
Now, what happens when you go to one of your favorite authors turning into a hunk of shit after you read most of their work?
Yeah.
So Stephen King, turns out he was a sex trafficker on Epstein's Island.
Yeah.
What do you do now?
Oh, that'll be tough.
And also, speaking of that, is there a crime that's so indefensible that no amount of time would allow you to go back and read their work or purchase their work? Or even keep the work that you already have?
It would have to be, like, kid stuff.
You just, like, nah.
Because, like, you know, any other kind of, like, weird sex thing, I could maybe come up with some fucking falutin just
rationale,
like, you know, like, I had no idea, so it shouldn't affect as I read them at the time, and whatever. But, like, when you start, like, doing, like, things with, like, kids and stuff, like, that's always the line is, like, kids.
Yeah. I don't know, because Neil Gaiman's kind of close to that.
Yeah.
Especially if the sex trafficking stuff comes to fruition. Like, it turns out he was sex trafficking, because a lot of times, even if the person who's trafficking them, because they're not checking IDs, it's oftentimes it's someone that's underage, because it's easier to grab them, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have no inclination to read Neil Gaiman's work now for a while, but it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm like, well, he's not convicted of anything. You know, like I still can't. I don't think I could do that. Just like I said, even if all that was actually consensual and it was just a scorned woman or something, you know, one of those things. Still, the creepy shit he was doing, that just makes me really not interested in, like, you know, buying his work and giving him money. But then also the fact that his son was involved in some of this stuff, like, I forget how old the kid was, 5, 6, or he was like a young kid. It was like just witnessing some of this shit, or just, I think a lot of it was like the kid was just kind of in the room, like, you know, maybe he was watching his iPad or something. But then Neil Gaiman's, you know, banging someone behind. Like, come on.
Yeah.
What the fuck, dude? So I don't think I'm going to, fucking sucks. I really like this masterclass.
Yeah.
Like, it was so good. It hurts when it's like someone you think was a good guy. If it was someone that was like already kind of a curmudgeon or something, like if it was like a Charles Bukowski, and then you found out after all these years, oh, actually he was out there fucking diddling or something. You're like, I mean, I can kind of see it. Like, you know, it's like, oh, Charles Bukowski turned out to be a hunk of shit. Who would have thought? But I don't think that really would change your opinion on their work so much. But then, like, if you found out that Stephen King was, you know, he got arrested for killing trans people on the side, you didn't know it, and you're like, well, fuck, he was like the champion of trans people, and now he's actually killing them. So it was just a facade,
right? And
I don't know why that hurts more than like, because the act, like, you're not there, you don't see it, right? You don't see pictures, you didn't see videos, you don't actually see the act, so it's almost like a movie or something. It's like it's too distant from you. But when you see the hypocrisy, which is right in front of you, it's like, well, this person claimed to be, this way, and you see that they're complete opposite, and it's just all a public. It almost insults your intelligence. It's like you played me for a fool. It's not like you're just doing something to these women. You also played me, your audience, as a fool too. And that hurts because now you're involved and you feel like you're kind of complicit because it's like, well, I loved your work. And now you're a diddler. And it's like, I don't know how to feel because even though I didn't support you being a diddler, I still supported your work and gave you the money that allowed you to do the diddling.
Yeah.
I'm part of the reason you got rich and famous. So it sucks. It's a bad situation all around.
And it also it sucks for because he had a lot of different things being adapted and doing stuff, and it just sucks for all those people that are involved in that because now
a lot of people are losing their jobs.
Yeah.
All the shows and movies and even comic books. There's a lot of people out of a job because of this fucking guy. Because he couldn't keep it in his goddamn pants. And the thing is, how long has he been doing this?
Yeah.
Like I said, he's in his late 50s, 60s. This is more recent accusations from old Neil Gaiman. What was fucking Neil Gaiman doing in his early 30s?
Yeah.
When he first got rich and famous, how long before he became a degenerate? Or was he always a degenerate?
Well, and that kind of goes back to the age-old question that we've brought up a couple times on this podcast. It's to be famous or to have to be successful in almost anything, it seems like you have to be a fucking creepy asshole.
At least to reach a certain level of success. But there's people who've reached certain levels of success and it wasn't accident. It wasn't accidental, but the way that they responded to the fame usually is to almost shun the fame. You look at a Keanu Reeves.
Right.
He's rich and famous, but that guy does not he's not he doesn't act like he's rich and famous.
And he won't when they're at the red carpet things and stuff and he's taking pictures with co-stars and stuff he never
won't touch them.
Yeah, he'll do the fake where he'll put their arm around him, but he's not actually physically touching them or anything like that.
Yeah, there's very few celebrities like that, but there are, and a lot of times there's also celebrities you hear they just don't make movies anymore. What happened to them? And it turns out they're just I don't want that shit. I made enough money I could live comfortably. I'm just gonna be a teacher or something.
Well, I mean, and that kind of brings up Hugh Jackman, or not Hugh Jackman, but what's his name who just died?
Gene Hackman?
Gene Hackman, yeah. That's kind of what, I don't think because of the craziness, but he's been doing it, he did it for a long time, and he was able to take his last 10 or 15 years of his life and just, and just live, you know what I mean? Just live, which is,
Well, there's the Daniel Day-Lewis types who they just like actually being an actor. They're oh, I'm only going to do certain movies, and then I'm just going to fuck off, when I'm not doing these certain movies. And it's just does it for the love of the craft. There's a lot of writers who just do it for the love of the craft. Like Cormac McCarthy, I'll say this about him. He let multiple marriages fail because he refused to just sell out. He was just no, I'm just a writer. I'm not getting a job. I'm writing the books I want to write. I'm creating art. And I'll live in poverty for as long as I have to create the art. And then, obviously the women then in his life didn't like that. They don't want to live like that. But he stuck to it. And then even when he became rich and famous, he wasn't doing interviews and he wasn't doing all this shit. He was just I'm just going to live the exact way I was. I just don't have to be poor anymore. And there's a lot of artists who that's what their mindset is. And those are the good ones. But then you got the people who actually seek fame and fortune. The ones that are oh, I'm doing this just because I want to be famous and I want to be rich. The fame is the one that really gets me.
Right.
It's I can understand
the money, wanting the money.
Yeah, if I could get rich off of my work and then just go live in the woods of Maine in a cabin or something, I'd be happy with that, or go live in Italy or something. It's I don't
or just even live where you live now and not have to fucking worry about
people bothering you, yeah. But the people that actually, I want people to see me. I want the fame and the power. Those are the people, and that's the majority. It seems it's these weird, phony people that just want to be famous and known, and I want to be respected. I don't give a shit. I don't want people to respect my work, not me. I don't care what they feel about me. But anyway, that's enough waxing philosophical here.
Waxing.
Don't say that, you nasty fucking degenerate. I didn't give you a sexual name today because of the nature of the conversation that we were going to have. I think we covered that maybe justly. I don't know. I would love to hear some of you people who listen to this podcast, what you feel on this topic. Would you buy more and read more Neil Gaiman work, knowing what we know now. And that falls for any artist or person that you at one time maybe liked, but then realize, oh, they're bad. So yeah, if you want to leave comments or email us or whatever, you could do that. And you could do that by going at DPW Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We probably will respond whenever I see it. It takes me a while to see, especially on YouTube. I never check the comments until like weeks later. So, and not that we get a lot of comments, but that's also because I don't respond for weeks at a time. You can follow my work at calebjamesk.com. As the release of this episode, I should be in Peasant Magazine issue 3, which you could buy for, I'm hoping, pretty cheap on Amazon. But there also should be a free PDF. Just look up Peasant Magazine. It'll take you to the website. But also, this was a story that was published 2 other times. So if you go to my website, it's on there as well. The stories in Halloween Remains, if you want to purchase that instead. It is apparently a good story because people keep wanting to publish it, but it's not one of those things where you have to buy Peasant Magazine. I just, appreciate supporting good work, and there's a lot of good stories in there. Also, Spencer, his OnlyFans, he is he's in Cyprus, and he's slaying sea monsters. Mm-hmm. So, and not sexual sea monsters, just regular sea monsters.
Yeah.
Like old god sea monster, like a Leviathan.
Yes.
That's fucking cool.
Right?
I'd like to see that. How you know what?
Big sword.
We'll save that for the sword and sorcery story you write about it. Anyway, thank you for listening. We will check you out next week.